The words escaped my mouth at the exact moment I thought I was alone. "I wish you weren't my boss." I whispered them so quietly that I barely heard myself say them, but the silence that followed felt louder than a gunshot. I froze with one hand resting on my desk, staring at the rain sliding down the windows of our Chicago office. Then I heard the soft click of a door behind me. My heart dropped. I slowly turned around, already knowing what I would see. There she stood, my boss, Rebecca Morgan, holding a folder against her chest, her expression completely unreadable. She had heard every word. "Before we continue, if you believe that kindness can change a person's life, and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to the channel. You never know whose heart might need a little hope today." My name is Nathan Brooks, and 6 months earlier, I had been grateful just to have a job. After losing my mother, I had fallen behind on rent, medical bills, and almost everything else life could throw at a person. I had a younger sister, Grace, who was attending community college in Illinois, and I had promised our mother before she died that I would make sure Grace never had to abandon her education because of money. So when I was hired as a financial analyst at a large consulting firm in downtown Chicago, I treated the job like a lifeline. I arrived early, stayed late, and never complained. Then Rebecca became my supervisor. She was brilliant, demanding, and frighteningly observant. She noticed every mistake. She returned reports covered in red marks. She expected deadlines to be met even when the rest of the team thought they were impossible. To me, she seemed cold. Whenever I tried to explain that I was overwhelmed, she would simply tell me to find a solution. I began to resent her. Every late night felt like her fault. Every missed family dinner felt like something she had taken from me. Every time she walked past my desk without smiling, I convinced myself she disliked me. What I didn't know was that Rebecca was fighting battles of her own. One Thursday evening, I was working on a major client report when I received a call from Grace. She was crying. Her tuition payment was due the next morning, and the scholarship she had expected had been delayed. We were short nearly $3,000. I promised her I would find a way, even though I had no idea how. After hanging up, I stared at my computer screen until the numbers blurred. Rebecca had rejected my request to leave early that afternoon, because the report was due the next morning. In that moment, my frustration turned into anger. I finished the report close to midnight. Rebecca had already left, or so I thought. I pushed my chair back, rubbed my exhausted eyes, and whispered those words to the empty office. "I wish you weren't my boss." Then came the sound behind me. Rebecca stood in the doorway. For several seconds, neither of us moved. I wanted the floor to open beneath my chair. I wanted to disappear. Instead, Rebecca quietly walked toward my desk and placed the folder down. I expected anger. I expected a lecture. Maybe even a termination notice. But she didn't do any of that. She looked at me and asked whether Grace was the reason I had been distracted all week. That question broke something inside me. I lowered my head and admitted everything. I told her about my mother, the bills, my sister, and the tuition payment. I confessed that I had been blaming her for everything because it was easier than admitting I was scared. Rebecca listened, without interrupting. Then, she told me something I would never forget. Her own younger brother had died when she was 24. She had spent years believing that if she worked hard enough, she could prevent life from hurting the people she loved. That was why she demanded so much from everyone around her. Work was the one place where she believed discipline could create certainty, even when life outside the office could not. Then she opened the folder. Inside was my report, but beside it was a letter from Human Resources approving an emergency employee assistance grant. Rebecca had submitted my name without telling me. She had also arranged for me to take the following afternoon off. She had noticed the exhaustion in my face for weeks and had been quietly trying to find a way to help without embarrassing me. I couldn't speak. The woman, I had convinced myself, was heartless, had been fighting to keep me from falling apart. The next morning, Grace received the money she needed. She stayed in school. I kept my job, but something inside me had changed. I stopped seeing Rebecca as the villain in my story, and started seeing her as a person. I began noticing the little things I had ignored, the way she brought coffee to employees working late, the way she remembered birthdays, the way she sometimes sat alone in her office, after everyone left, staring at an old photograph on her desk. A few weeks later, our company faced an enormous crisis. A major client threatened to cancel a contract because of a mistake in a financial projection. I knew the numbers better than anyone, but I was terrified of making another error. Rebecca stood beside me during the presentation and trusted me to explain what had happened. She didn't take control. She let me speak. We saved the account. Afterward, she simply smiled and told me she had always known I could do it. Those words meant more to me than any promotion ever could. Months passed, and eventually Rebecca offered me a leadership position. I told her I wasn't ready. She smiled and reminded me that being ready didn't mean being fearless. It meant being willing to step forward while you were still afraid. That sentence stayed with me. Years later, I still remember the night she heard me say, "I wished she wasn't my boss." Sometimes, I wonder how different my life would have been if she had responded with anger, instead of compassion. She could have humiliated me. She could have fired me. She could have held those words against me forever. Instead, she gave me grace. And perhaps that is what changed everything. We spend so much of our lives judging people by the moments when they are hardest to understand. We see someone's strictness and call them cruel. We see their silence and assume they don't care. We see their distance and decide they have no heart. But sometimes the person standing behind the wall we built in our minds is carrying a wound we know nothing about. Rebecca taught me that kindness doesn't always look soft. Sometimes kindness looks like holding someone accountable because you believe they can become better. Sometimes it looks like a difficult deadline, an honest correction, or a quiet act of generosity when nobody is watching. And sometimes, the person you wish would disappear from your life is the very person God has placed there to help you become who you were meant to be. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach people who may be carrying invisible struggles of their own. And before the story ends, I want you to do something special. Comment "Kindness changes everything" if you believe we should never judge someone before knowing the battle they are fighting. I never told Rebecca how deeply ashamed I was of those words. Years later, I finally did. She laughed softly and told me she had forgotten them long ago. I hadn't, because that night, I thought I had been caught saying something cruel. In reality, I had been given a chance to learn something beautiful. Sometimes life doesn't change because someone gives us what we want. Sometimes life changes because someone gives us what we need. And sometimes the person standing behind us when we think we're completely alone isn't there to punish us. They're there to remind us that we never were.